The final preseason game is done and in the books. Aaron Rodgers is the New York Jets quarterback. Let's go. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to be breaking down the final preseason game of the New York Jets versus the New York Giants, which we won 32-24. Snoopy Trophy comes home. We won the Snoopy Bowl, but there's a lot of things to talk about today. Obviously, this is the first time in the offseason that we finally got to see the ones dressing and playing, and boy, was it surreal. It was magic. There was no other real way to say it. It didn't feel real going out there and seeing Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, in a Jets uniform, leading the huddle, breaking the huddle, getting under center or in the shotgun, and throwing passes to Garrett Wilson and all of these guys that are on the it just didn't feel real. And I was watching it happen, and it still didn't feel real. But it is. He's our quarterback, and that's freaking awesome. But let's break down today. Let's talk about the offense, the defense, and everything in between. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers went 5 of 8 for 47 yards and a touchdown, and I really liked what I saw from Aaron Rodgers. We finally got to see the separation of what a Hall of Fame quarterback is and what a young quarterback is. Specifically, like when you look at like Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson, like obviously we know that there's a difference, but I mean specifically, Wink Martindale said, you know what, I want to see how Aaron Rodgers handles the full-out blitz, and I think on 6 of his 8 dropbacks, they went cover 0, full-out blitz, just to see how Aaron Rodgers handled it, and it was magnifique, 5 of 8, and that touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson was just phenomenal. I think that we would have had 2 touchdowns if it wasn't for a stupid penalty by Randall Cobb. And I don't mean that Randall Cobb got a stupid penalty. I mean, it was a stupid penalty called on Cobb. He was in front of the receiver. He was in front of the defensive back. He hit him square in the chest. It's just a really, really soft call, in my opinion. But that's the call. Those are the calls that are going to be kept being made. And it's stupid. There's no other way to say that. And I hate that that's the call that got made, but it is. And it's kind of a really hard job to get back from like 2nd and 18. You got 2 plays to make 18 yards. It's not that easy because they can just drop everybody in coverage. And there's that. But the connection between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson went 3 for 3 for 30 yards and a touchdown. It was just... This is what we've got to look forward to all year. One of the things that I am curious about with the first team offense is what is the target share going to look like? Obviously, you have to throw to wide receivers that aren't named Garrett Wilson. Allen Lazard wasn't out there. McCole Hardman seemed to maybe have dislocated his finger or something along the lines with the Zach Wilson ball. The deep ball, I'm not sure. I haven't seen a report. He just looked a little bit uncomfortable with his hand. Randall Cobb is kind of old. Allen Lazard is still coming back from his injury. I'm really curious to see what the target share is going to look like, especially when you add the tight ends coming in there. Breece and Dalvin didn't play in today's game, and you could definitely tell because the running backs were just atrocious, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but he's pretty good. I also didn't mind our protection. Keep in mind, we were playing against the second team. Aaron Rodgers really didn't get pressured all that much, outside of the fact that we asked one of the worst pass-protecting running backs to take on a pass rusher, and that was just a mismatch. The coverage didn't slide over the right way, and that should never happen. We should never see a running back taking on an edge rusher head on, and that's the only reason that they got pressure there, in my opinion. But again, all-out blitzes, Aaron had time. He had time. He sat in the pocket. He got the ball out fast, and it looked good, which is great. And we'll talk about the offensive line a little bit later, but it looked great. We had all of our starters, minus Dwayne Brown, and the offensive line looked pretty good with all-out blitzes coming almost constantly. Moving on, Zach Wilson, I thought, had a really good day, and just we saw where he struggles, and that's under pressure. Again, on 18 dropbacks, it almost seemed like 9 or 10 all-out blitzes came at Zach, and for him to go 11 of 18 for 107 yards, not throw an interception, and have a couple of touchdown passes get dropped. The McCole Hardman one, Xavier Gibson one, he overthrew E.J. Jenkins on what should have been 6, but he was smart with the ball, and you can see where Aaron Rodgers is Influence is starting to come in. Aaron Rodgers loves throwing balls at or behind the line of scrimmage, outside of the numbers, and deep. And that's exactly what we saw from Zach Wilson. Very few passes up the middle of the field so that they weren't dangerous in case they came or they missed or anything like that. Being able to read what the wide receivers were doing and whether or not they were looking at him to throw the ball at him, and just making smart decisions with a very, very basic playbook. We didn't have a super elaborate playbook or play calling. It was basic concepts. I could have called those plays with a Madden playbook because, again, super simple concepts. Because it's the preseason. We're not trying to give anything away. And then Tim Boyle coming in probably as his last snap as a New York Jet before cutdown day, before he makes it to the practice squad. 9 of 11, 107, and 2 touchdowns. Great from Tim Boyle, taking advantage of his opportunity. But moving on to the running backs. The running backs struggled. Zonovan Knight, 7 carries for 22 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. It's just not good enough. Travis Dye, 5 carries for 16 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Michael Carter with 4 carries for 1 yard, 0.3 yards per carry. Our running backs just didn't get the job done today. I don't think that the Giants' defensive line was all of that good to be able to justify the running game not getting going, but there's a reason that we went after Dalvin Cook, and this is why. Is the running game is such an important part of what Nathaniel Hackett wants to do with this offense, and we couldn't get the run game going, and it wasn't because the offensive line was really struggling to create holes. It's because the running backs were struggling to find the cutback lanes, and they just lacked vision is what it kind of seemed like. I'm going to have to go back and watch it to make sure that that's what was actually happening, and I'm not just misremembering because it's hard to pay attention to everybody that's out there, but that happened. And now talking about the wide receivers, and it's not that hard to think about, but I think Xavier Gibson, after the performance that he had today, is making this roster. 7 catches on 10 targets, 79 yards. That's not including his special teams contribution, 20 yards on a return that he did today. Just had a really good job. They were targeting him a ton, the most targets out of any pass catcher by almost 2 times. The next closest person was Alex Erickson with 5 targets, and Xavier Gibson had 10. Just absolutely phenomenal. Really making a case for him to be on this roster, especially with his special teams ability, because that means that if we don't have to use Mecole Hardman as a returner, which isn't going to put reps and damage on his body for what is generally considered a useless play, he made a legitimate argument for him to be on the 53-man roster for the New York Jets because he looked good out there as a slot, shifty, small guy who's got some speed and is pretty dynamic in space. You know who he reminds me of a little bit? Like Braxton Berrios. And if you're telling me that an undrafted free agent who's making $1 million as wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 is a good enough replacement for the guy that we were paying $5 million to be wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, I'm cool with that. And again, maybe there's some things that he definitely needs to polish, but he definitely stood out. A couple of other really good wide receiver performances, not named Garrett Wilson. We already talked about him, 3 for 30 and a touchdown, just absolutely insane. Alex Erickson, 5 for 38, 2 touchdown passes caught today. 7th season in the NFL, hasn't been able to stick. I don't think he's going to stick on this roster, but it's good to see the man ball out in preseason. Irvin Charles, 2 for 2 for 37 yards. Really good targets there. A really big body, someone to keep an eye out for a practice squad spot. Jason Brownlee, 2 for 4 for 25, having himself a pretty good day. And then all the tight ends and running backs and everybody like that. But let's talk about defense, because the defensive jobs were up for grabs today, and there were a couple of people competing for jobs. Let's talk about, the linebackers. Zaire Barnes and Jamian Sherwood led the way today with tackles. Barnes with 8, Jamian Sherwood with 7, really distinguishing themselves as the backups in New York in the linebacker room. And Chaz Surratt had himself a really, really good day. 5 of 4, 5 total tackles, 4 of them coming as solo tackles. And when we compare that, if you watch my other video of did the tight ends do enough to separate themselves to justify a tight end 4, I don't think that they did. And Chaz Surratt seems like a guy that's going to make this roster over tight end 4, which is pretty telling. And so there's that. And then everyone else on the defensive line, Tanzel Smart, I want to give him a quick shout out, got hurt and still powered through the injury. And it sucks because I love a guy like Tanzel Smart, but we're so deep on the defensive line that I don't see where we're going to be able to keep him on the 53-man roster and still field a roster of players. And I really hope that he gets claimed because he deserves to be on an NFL roster. And I hope it's with an NFC team and not an AFC team. Another player that really, I think, separated themselves today was Ashton Davis. I think he did a really good job today. I'm going to have to go back and really pay attention to what he did. I know that he had a really, really bad missed tackle on one of the bigger plays for the Giants, but I think that he did a really good job, and I think my biggest fear is going to come true, and that they're going to keep Ashton Davis over Trey Dean, and I wouldn't totally be upset about it because I kind of see it. I kind of see what he put out there, but I just think that Trey Dean is so good. Michael Carter today with a big hit when the ones were out there. Absolutely great. Bryce Huff doing Bryce Huff things. Had an excellent sack today. So did Jermaine Johnson, again, dominant out there. I think that was a really weak call on the roughing the passer or the unsportsmanlike conduct or whatever that penalty was on him and Tyrod. Like, it barely brushed the guy. I thought that was really weak, but again, you got to be smarter than that. You can't be doing that. And I think we got to see what Adrian Amos is going to do for this team today. We got to see him dressed as that third safety kind of hybrid linebacker. So this idea that the New York Jets might only carry 4 linebackers or maybe carry 5 linebackers and have Adrian Amos exist as that extra linebacker safety player might make sense. Maybe you carry 4 linebackers so that you can carry 5 safeties so that you can keep Trey Dean. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at that. But I think we know what Adrian Amos is going to be, and I don't think that he's really going to be a safety for the Jets. I think he's going to play that really weird hybrid safety linebacker role for the New York Jets. Brandon Echols with a pick 6. I love Brandon Echols. I think obviously he's going to be suspended week 1, and I think that the idea is that Bryce Hall is going to replace him week 1, and then I would cut Bryce Hall after that personally, and that's it. That's everything that I got to talk about. The last 80 bit of news that I will say is that Robert Saleh today in his press conference announced that Mekhi Becton is the starter at right tackle as of right now. It is his job to lose, and I don't think that anybody on the roster is going to be able to beat Mekhi Becton for that job. And if our offensive line, our starting offensive line week 1 is Dwayne Brown, Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Mekhi Becton, I feel so confident that we're going to be able to not just dominate at the line of scrimmage on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball against the Buffalo Bills, but that we're going to be able to win that game pretty handedly. Now, we got 2 weeks until we get there. There's a lot of things that can change. Cutdown days are coming. A lot of content coming this weekend because cutdowns start on Tuesday. Now, teams can get ahead of that. We've seen that. It's going to be a crazy 72 hours of teams cutting players and all of that stuff. I expect the Jets maybe to get rid of 5 or 6 guys tomorrow to try to give them an opportunity to get on a roster early. But that being said, we're going to see a lot of players lose their jobs over the next couple of days, and there's a lot of things that we're going to need to pay attention to, whether it's the New York Jets claiming somebody, people being claimed for the New York Jets, because there are guys that I want to see make it to the practice squad, and the Jets last year were the #1 claimed team when it came to players that were cut. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of the last preseason game of the New York Jets. What did you think of all of these players? And let me know in the comment section below. Hey, if you want to watch more Talking Jets with Tigo content, click on this video right here. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button right here. And last but not least, go Jets.